sold my last company for $46.2 million. That was Gym Launch. And one of the keys was learning how to grow businesses. And so you might not know this, but there's two ways that you can double a business. One is you double the amount of customers that you sell every month. The other is you double how much they're worth. This video will give you 7 things that we did to double how much customers were worth in our companies and the ones that we buy and invest in today. And so this is a money checklist that you can literally immediately do by the end of the video that I do when I buy a company to make all the customers more valuable and ultimately make way more money. So here's our outline. And just to give you a little bit more context on this, Gym Launch was a company that licensed to gym owners. So we had over 5,000 locations that licensed our business model. And one of the things that I did in the consulting process, which I learned before this as a white-collar consultant for defense contracting, which you don't care about, but that's okay, is the consulting process. And the way that we discovered answers to hard questions was we would survey a large percentage of the population. Then we'd find the people who represented the solution that we wanted. So in this instance, I looked at all the gym owners and said, who is the top 1% of gyms that have the lowest churn? And I said, if you've maintained that for 6 months or more, tell me what you're doing. And so I hopped on the phone with every single one of those gyms, and then each one of them gave me 30 different things that they were doing to decrease churn, to get people to stay longer. But when I looked at all of the data across every one of these gyms that were in the top 1%, all of them were doing 5 things. And so I'll give you those 5, and I'll also add 2 more that we decided to do that cut our churn in half, which ultimately made Gym Launch a sellable company. And we've now implemented this since in all the businesses that we buy. So the first one is exit interviews. Now, if you're in a business that you can't do that, that's fine, but I'd almost recommend that you do it. And I'm gonna break down each of these in detail on that board as soon as we get into it. So I'm gonna go through each of them as we go. So let's start with exit interviews. So exit interviews had this amazing thing that we figured out. So the gym owners would say, hey, when somebody wants to cancel, we obligate someone and we discuss it up front. Meaning when someone signs up, we say, just FYI, if you do choose to cancel or when you choose to cancel, we just ask that you do an exit interview. And the main reason for that is so that we can make the product better. Because if every time someone cancels, we get to learn one thing, then over time we'll be able to plug all the little holes in our product and people stay again and again. And so what happens is you get on the phone with this person and you say, why so sad, right? More or less. And then they will then usually need to vent. And so let me give you the rule of the angry boat. So my first or second business mentor, I worked at he was a furrier, and he said only one person can be the angry boat. And this is how it works. If someone's angry about you or your product or your business, the only way that you can actually solve the problem is get more angry than them. But you're getting angry not at them, but at the problem. And so they're angry at the problem, and then they feel validated when you're even more angry. And guess what happens? If someone comes in and they're like, this is dog shit, I had such a terrible experience, you're like, that is ridiculous that they had that experience. I can't believe you went through that. That's absurd. We have to get to the bottom of this right now. I promise you, we will fix this for you. Thank you so much for telling me, but I'm more upset than you are about this. Now what happens is they will then say, well, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, I appreciate you're a business owner, things happen, like, thank you so much. They feel validated and they start trying to calm you down. And guess what happens? You win, all right? And so half the time when we'd get on the phone with these people, we would just say, hey, we're angrier than you. And we said, let me make it up to you. And so we'd say, hey, all the money that you've paid up to this point, I'm gonna give you, and you can pick an amount, or you can give the whole thing. Say, I'm gonna credit that towards you staying so that I can make it up to you. And if after that period of time, you still aren't happy with the solution that I now have, given the fact I know you're upset, no worries, but at least let me try and make it up to you. By doing that, you can either save them, or if they say something to the extent of like, well, I thought I was gonna get way more help, I thought I need more implementation, I need more whatever, I need more hand-holding, believe it or not, this is what's crazy, many of these people actually get upsold. And you say, you know what? It's our mistake. You were actually sold into the wrong thing. You need way more help than what we currently giving you at this silver level, but you'd be perfect for gold because that actually, what you described as the problem is literally what gold does. And so let me make it up to you. Let me take everything you paid for silver and credit it towards gold, and let's get you taken care of. And by doing that, we took a negative and actually made a more valuable customer. And so if half your customers or half of that half upsell to something that's 2 times or 3 times more expensive, your revenue churn just disappears. Like, very smart business move. When I say revenue churn, it means the amount of revenue you lose. Because if you lose half the customers, but the other half spend twice as much money, you actually don't lose revenue. Now, the other half say, F you, and then they leave, and that's okay, all right? And that's part of the game. But if you can save half of the people by simply adding this one step, guess what? You cut down on churn. So that is number one, exit interviews. The next one was reach outs. Now, let me explain what this means. So I had to come to this conclusion after looking at all the data across all the locations we had who were doing really well. Now, a lot of them did this in different ways, but my hypothesis around why this works so well is they basically approximate a real relationship. So the reason that most gyms and many small businesses that are recurring, especially in the service industry, get stuck around 100 to 150 customers is because of something called Dunbar's number. And so Dunbar's number is a postulate that people can only manage 150 close relationships or medium relationships in their mind. After that, it's just too many people. And so because of that, without any systems, you can usually manage about 100 to 150 people, which guess what, is what most people's business cap at until they have systems. And so the reach outs essentially approximate what you do to have a personal relationship with someone, but you put it into a system. And here's the key part about these reach outs is that the reach outs don't need to be necessarily about the product you sell or their experience as a customer, but more checking in on the human being overall. And it doesn't need to be every 14 days, and you don't necessarily even need to sell that. And this is a key point, is you're not selling the reach out. You sell the product, you sell the membership, you sell the subscription, you sell whatever, and then you just do this because on the back end, you over deliver. And one of the key points of this is you can do more than you say you do. Like your offer that you give someone, you don't have to tell them everything you do. You need to tell them enough to get them to buy, and then everything else becomes surprise and delight. And so you can know that every 14 to 21 days, you're going to reach out to them and say, hey, how's life? Or hey, I saw that your daughter is going to college. Or hey, I saw that you went to that concert this weekend. How was it? What it does is it creates a relationship. And it's a lot easier, you can write this one down, a lot easier to quit a membership than it is to quit a relationship. And so what we want to do is facilitate that bond that people will have. And so what we did is we systematized this so that every trainer, I'm just giving you what we did so that you can make it work for your business, every single trainer had 40 or so customers that they were responsible for, and they reached out on every 14 to 21 days. So if you got 40 customers, it means you reach out to 10 or 15 people a week. Not a big deal. And you just check in, which hopefully you want to do anyways. But by systematizing it, we created personalized relationships at scale and cut down churn. Also, that becomes an early warning system because if someone does have an issue, they reach out to the person they already in communication with. So it's not this like, who do I talk to? They just talk to the person they're already talking to, right? So you get way faster feedback from the front lines. Thing number 3. So we got this guy, reach outs. Next one was events. So this is member events. Now, no matter what business you have, whether you're a real estate agent, you're a plumber, you're a gym owner, you're an agency, it doesn't matter. Having events for your customers shows that you care. But more importantly, you can also make money from them. So let me explain. So at the events, we made the events for everyone. So customers could bring their friends, they could bring other potential customers, and by doing this, it actually became lead gen for us too. So we more than paid for the events in the sales that we were able to do at the events. And so if you say, hey, I'm just gonna give you the gym example. Hey, bring a friend to our event. Everybody brings a friend. Great, you have twice as many people there as you normally would. And then of course you make a crazy offer while you're there for anybody who's a friend. Because you say, hey, because as an aside, if you don't know this, referrals are typically worth 2 to 3 times more than normal cold customers. And so if you should pay for any lead, the most, it should be referrals or be willing to pay the most for referrals. And so at events, the way that we do this, and I'm gonna give you a little tip here. So number 4 is handwritten cards. I'm gonna show you how these work together. All right, so that means handwritten card. We found out that handwritten cards work every 6-ish weeks. That also tends to coincide with the cadence that you can run events for your members. Now, an event, if you run it, afterwards your churn will go up. People get a lot of value and they say, you know what, I got enough value, I want to leave. And so the key to making events work is the open loop. You have to tell them when the next event is going to be while or right before they have this event. So they always have something to look forward to. Otherwise, they'll get the value and then they'll leave. And I found this out the hard way, which is why I'm telling you. Always have the next thing in place. Now, the key to making the referral thing work is that you send them a handwritten card with their name, you sign it, whatever, and you say, hey, we appreciate you. We know that you could choose a lot of places to fly. Thank you for choosing Alex Airlines, whatever. Now, here's the PS statement. This is the important part. You put PS at the bottom and you say, take a picture of this card and text it to a friend in a 3-way, keep your mind out of the gutter, in a 3-way, And that way, your friend is invited too. So you write them the handwritten card, you remind them of the event that's coming up, so that one, it shows that you care, you took the time. Two, you're giving them a benefit to the theme of the event. You call it Crazy Sock, Wednesday, whatever, who cares? All right. Then, that's obviously a gym scenario. If you have marketing, you would make it themed around something else. Then you say, invite another business owner, and if they have this picture at the door, they'll get let in. And so they then get kudos from their friend to inviting them to a free event where you generate leads from it. And so you reinforce the relationship with the customer, you reinforce the personal tie, and you give them a benefit while also allowing them to give a benefit to somebody who becomes a customer of yours. And by doing these two things together, check, check, we kept more customers. So the fifth one, and this is if I had to, I'm getting to the best ones last because YOLO. All right. This was attendance tracking. All right, this one's big. All right, we're getting into the meaties, the double meat retention tactics. Calm down, Jason. All right. All right. So we have attendance tracking. So what we were able to see from tracking attendance at our gyms is, let's say it's somebody on a 3 times a week membership. So you have 3 times a week they show up, then 3, then 2, then 2, then 1, then 0, and they'd cancel. All right. This is pretty much, you could see it. You could just see it clear as day. People just start, they come down once, and then they slowly trickle off, and then they cancel. Which, by the way, the easiest correlation with cancellation is lack of consumption. So if you want people to stay and pay, you got to get them to use it. And one of the sayings I had in the gym world that I think is worth writing down for anyone is that no matter how cheap a gym membership is, a gym membership you never use is never worth it. And so whether it's $5 or $50, if someone doesn't use it, even if it's the most amazing thing in the world, they will not keep paying for it at some point because a waste is a waste. And so on the flip side, almost no one complains about a gym membership they use every day, no matter how expensive it is. Because if you use it every day, you're going to want to keep using it. And so the goal is consumption. And so attendance tracking helped us get an early indicator that someone is about to fall off. And if you don't have early indicators in your business, that's what you need to have, because churn, people canceling, is a lagging indicator. It means it happens after the bad thing happened. We want to find out the moment the bad things happen so we can turn something from tragic to magic. That's a Disney saying. But what we found is that if we found that somebody went and they missed one session of the 3 that they were supposed to go to, if we reached out to them a bunch of times here, the next week, in this scenario, same miss, boom, they're back at 3, and we saved them. Because they found out that someone was actually paying attention to whether they were coming or not. And so they felt accountable to showing up because someone is paying attention. And so this works for whatever it is that you sell, is you want to make sure that they know that you're paying attention to whether they're consuming it or not. And the way that you actually do these reach outs is reverse of leads, okay? So let me explain. With a lead, like a marketing lead, you reach out a lot of times the first day, fewer times the second day, fewer times the third day, fewer times the fourth day, and eventually you stop reaching out to them, right? Because they didn't buy, they're not interested, whatever. With customers, when you reach out once the first day. If they don't respond, you reach out twice the next day. If they still don't respond, you reach out 3 times. Basically, you escalate rather than de-escalate when it's a customer, because you're like, hey, we need to figure this out. And by mapping this reach out structure to attendance tracking, you can go from this scenario to this scenario. And that's exactly what happened for us and for all the memberships that I've been a part of. So that covers attendance tracking. Let's go to number 6. Also a big beefy boy, calm down, Jason, which is onboarding. All right, this one is like one of those silent killers that you would not believe how important and effective it is to implement this within your business. So now, if you have a one-to-many type solution where you're onboarding, you have 100 customers a day that get sold because you have a $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever thing, you just want to automate the onboarding. If you have any type of service that you can possibly, I would say honestly, even if it's $100 a month, you can still do group onboardings, right? And so the idea is that you want to have a clear, choreographed experience for day 1 all the way to day whatever, day X. And you want to tell them this is what's going to happen. And the key word in this whole thing is expectation setting. Is you want to set expectations and you want to reconfirm the buying process, buying decision. So essentially, you're reselling them on why they chose to buy from you to begin with. A lot of people in the first 24 hours, is where they get cold feet, they back out, they just say, hey, you know what, charge back, refund, whatever it is. They don't even consume the thing yet. And so you want to reconfirm the buying decision, tell them why it was a great idea, give other reasons that they didn't mention, and also confirm the ones they used to buy. And then you say, this is the roadmap. This is what you can expect to see from us. And the ideal client relationship, you simply set expectations, meet expectations, set expectations, meet expectations. And if it's up to you, I would rather you set and meet multiple times rather than set 20 and then meet all 20 on this day. So let me give you an example. If I had a marketing agency, and let's say we did website design and SEO and whatever, a bunch of other stuff. If I had a weekly cadence with them where I said, hey, this is all the stuff we did in the last week, it would be more effective to say, this is what we're working on today, and then the next day send them an email, be like, hey, we finished that part, and tomorrow we're working on this. In the same 7 days, they're gonna get 7 positive feedback cycles with you and your business of you setting expectations and meeting expectations, even though it's the same work. Simply taking the second to reach out to them at each of these scenarios to let them know what you did will get them to stay longer. Imagine you sign up and the next day they're like, hey, we already did this. We're like, oh, that just reconfirmed the buying decision and they met the expectations they set. And then you do it again, and then again, and again. And by the time day 30 comes around, they're like, man, these guys are amazing. They're so on it. And that's what you want customers to think about you. And so you want to set the expectations, you want to reconfirm the decision, and I like to think of something like a walkthrough, which is, how do you use the thing, whatever it is? How do you use our service? If this happens, what do you do? And this process, you want to have this all over the place. Like this, you're going to repeat over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because they're not listening. They're on their phone. They've got their kids in the back seat. They don't really care that much about your business. They bought it one time on a whim, whatever. You want to make sure that at least one of the times they hear part of it and they can assemble the whole Mona Lisa picture together through the many times you told them. So onboarding, if you're not doing it, please, for the love of God, do it, because you will be amazed at how many you will get. You could probably add 1 or 2 months to your recurring revenue by simply setting the expectation properly, reconfirming the decision, and walking them through exactly what they just bought. So that gives us our onboarding. And finally, lucky number 7, unlockables. All right, so what's an unlockable? Great question, Jason. Unlockables and milestones. Okay, now this is gonna be so painfully obvious and yet no one does it. What do you want a customer to do? Like really, you're like, what do you want a customer to actually do? Besides continue to stay and pay. There's other stuff too, right? So right off the bat, what I want someone to do is I want them to activate. Now, if you haven't defined what activation is, you look at the customers that have stayed with you the longest and you ask them what are the things they did early that provided the most value. You can also survey this depending on the size of your customer base. You say, hey, what was the thing that provided the most value? And you can try and guess at this. Once you get this point right, everything you do drives to activate customers. So for example, if you had a software that built landing pages, you might find out that if you get someone to switch to a custom URL rather than XYZ software dot whatever their name is, as soon as they make that switch, they stay 5 times longer. You want to figure out what that activation point was. For Gym Launch, it was if we get someone a $2,000 sale in the first 7 days, the likelihood they stay and continue to pay was monstrous. And so we drove a lot of attention to try and make sure people actually made a darn sale that was really big and material in the first week. Duh, right? If I have someone in weight loss, I want them to lose 5 pounds or more in the first week. Duh. So these are these key points that seem like duh things, but if that's actually so important, why aren't we driving all of our effort towards that thing? A different software company that I know, they call it the first 5 clients problem. They had to get trainers onto a software, and they realized that if they just got the trainer 5 clients, then they would never cancel. And so everything drove towards getting the person the first 5 customers. And all of that is activation. So that's step 1. Step 2 is, what else would I want from a customer? Well, I don't know about you, but I would want a testimonial, right? I mean, if I activated them and they're happy now, let me see if they can get me more customers. So I want to get a review. I want to get a testimonial. And you can do that in a variety of ways. They can do a post. They can leave you a review on a review site. They can leave you a personalized video. Number of different ways you do it, or all the ways. You can ask them to do those things, and you get something else from them. Number 3 is I want a referral, right? You know people. Why do you hate me? Why don't you want to tell your friends about my product? Do you hate them, or do you hate me? You hate one of us, right? So we got to figure out what it is. And I think I used to, like, again, this is where rapport comes into place and how big your business is. But like when I was like younger, I'd be like, why do you hate me so much, Sarah? And she's like, what are you talking about? I don't hate you. I'd be like, you haven't sent any friends. Or do you hate your friends? And she'd be like, I don't hate my friends. I'd be like, then let's meet, let's hang out, introduce me, let's do a 3-way. And they're like, whoa, just kidding, ha ha ha, same jokes every time. Anyway, and so you do the text intro, you get it, you're like, hey, take a picture with me and Sarah. And we take the picture, I take it on her phone, we send it to her friend with me as the third person. That way they can't ignore you, and you have it on the iPhone, so it's all blue and everyone knows everyone's legit. But because of that, they have a face that they don't know, the face they do know, and the face they do know is in the text message thread, because they can't be a dick to me because they know that Sarah likes me. And that's how you can get referrals. Referrals number 3. Number 4, and you're like, wait, how's this tying to retention? Don't worry, don't you worry, we'll get there, is ascension. So this is actually wild. There was a great research study that was done by one of these big Fortune whatever companies, and they found out that the single greatest thing that you could do to retain customers is get them to buy something else. Because at a certain point, people get this itch to buy. Like, it's been a year since I bought something in this space. And if you don't satisfy them by literally providing another offer to them, they will just go buy somewhere else. And so, as silly as this sounds, sometimes the best way to retain someone is to sell someone again and sell them something else or bigger. And so if we think about this from a reverse standpoint, if I had a customer, I would want them to activate, I want them to leave me a testimonial, I want them to send a referral, and I want them to buy more stuff and more expensive stuff. Well, if that's what I want them to do, then for God's sake, why don't we make these things the unlockables? Now, the unlockables are another fancy word for bonuses that someone gets after they do a certain thing. So if I want everyone to activate, then I might make whatever my KPI is for activation get a big carrot on top of it. They get a big jackpot for doing this thing, right? And so if I was in a digital environment, let's say I have a school community, so you can say, hey, if you've stayed for 3 months, you get this big mega training on ads that I did. And the reason I have it at 3 months is because you got to do the fundamentals. But if you stay past month 3, this unlocks. Wow, boy, do I have a bigger incentive to stay to month 3 if I know I'm going to get this big jackpot of value. And guess what I'm going to do? At month 3, at month 6, at month 9. And the thing is you want to go some little human behavior thing, you can actually extend this timeline. It can go 3, and then you can go 8, and then you can go month 15. Like, you can extend the time horizon between the big positive reinforcements and then just make them bigger and badder every time, and they look forward to them more and more and more. And so unlockables can either be on activity, meaning they did something. I'll give you this ads training if you leave me a testimonial. I'll give you this ads training if you send me a referral. I'll give you the ads training if you buy the next level. Or it can be off of tenure, which means they don't do anything besides stay and pay, which, hey, we're also happy to do that. You get this at month 6, you get this at month 3, you get this month 8, you get this month 15, whatever. And so the unlockables can get people to stay that extra time. And if you're not tracking this every month, which you absolutely should be, you should be able to tease that number up. You should see every month, okay, we're at 3.7 months. All right, we're 4.2 months. All right, what do we do to go from 4.2 to 4.7? What do we do from 4.7 to 5.6? And you just keep adding and plugging the holes in the bucket. Because I promise you with retention, it's not the silver bullet. It's all of these things put together. And when we did this, it took our churn from 11% to 6% monthly. Now, let me walk you through the final thing to explain why this is worth it. So we're going to talk about retention. Why does this matter? All right, so let me give you a very simple example. Let's say you sell something that's $100 a month. Okay, great. Awesome, Alex, $100 a month. Now, let's say your churn, as in the percentage of people who leave every month, is 10%. So you've got 100 customers, a month later you've got 90, so 10% churn. Now, my lifetime value per customer is $1,000. That means they stay on average 10 months. This is V1. This is pre everything I'm about to show you. Now, if all we do, if you follow everything that I show you in this video, is you get that 10%. Let's say, what do we want to get it to? Survey says, give me a number. What do we want the churn to become? 6%. All right, that'll be tough for math. Let's go 5%. So we get churn from 10% to 5%. Doesn't seem like a big difference. We go from 10 to 5, right? We decrease it by 5%. Big whoop, right? Well, let me show you how big of a whoop it is. Calm down, Jason. All right, that means that my new lifetime value per customer is $2,000. And while everyone else in your industry is obsessing about how do I get more customers, how do I get more customers, if you can double how much your customers are worth, you more than double, well, one, you double your revenue, but secondly, you'll more than double your profit because you don't have to pay the additional cost of acquisition every time to make that extra revenue. And so all the savings drop straight to your bottom line. So the incremental margin on this is huge. And guess what other jackpot bonus you get? If everyone else can only spend, let's say if they're doing 3 to 1, $300 to get a customer, guess what you can spend? $600 to get a customer. That's if you're keeping 3 to 1, which I recommend. All right, so you can get whatever, $650. You get the point. All right, per customer. So here's the crazy thing, is that if you can only spend 300, you might cap out at, let's say, $1,000 a day in ad spend. But if you can spend 650, you might cap out at 100,000 a day in ad spend. So getting a double on LTV, I'll give you an example for one of our businesses. One of our companies, we 1.9x LTV. Actually really similar to this. It was 2,000 to start, and we took it to 3,800. And we did this through a massive list that I'm going to show you in a second. But by going from 2,000 to 3,800, that's an 8, we went from $2 million per month in the business to $2 million per week. That's why this matters. So let's dive in. So we talked about what retention is. We talked about why it matters. You can massively make way more money by just changing the things you do inside the business. Also, you'll be a better business overall. But the third one was how to actually change it. So I'm going to give you bonus number 4, which is, okay, Alex, I haven't done any of these things. Which should I start with? If I was going to give you an order to order these things, and I was just a nefarious motherfucker, which I am, I did these not in reverse order. I would probably think about this both in cost to put into place and then return from it. Because some of these things might be really powerful but take a long time, and I'd rather you do this in order of like bang for buck. All right, so number 1 would be onboarding. You literally just add one step in the process after someone gets closed, and then you reaffirm the decision, you set the expectations, and then you give them the roadmap. You give them the walkthrough of what's going to happen next. It's all you do, all right? And you talk to them, make them feel like a human, that they didn't just pay money some glom, big gray box of money making, all right? So number 1, we onboard. Number 2 is I would probably do unlockables. Main reason here is that you pretty much just set the incentive in place. Once you have it, it's like a one-time fix. Like you figure out what your unlockable is, and then you just set up when you want it to be. And for example, if people are currently staying 4 months, then put it at month 5. Just try and get them to get over that edge. Just give them something to look forward to, edge them on, right? So you want to just put it just past where they're currently canceling. So that would be the second thing that I would do. The third thing that I would do would be the exit interviews. That's a 3. Boop, there we go. Because you can pretty much implement this quickly, and I think you as a founder, especially if you're getting into this is so valuable. Like you get so much great data on what you can do better, and you have the opportunity to save the customer, and you have the opportunity to ascend the customer. Like so high value. Definitely worth it. If I had to go number 4 here, attendance tracking. This one takes more work, but huge returns. And so I would say this one is super effective in terms of power. It just takes more work to do, but this would probably be number 1 or number 2 in terms of like actual effect on retention. It just takes a little bit more work, so I would do 1, 2, and 3 first. All right, let's do, after that, I would say survey says, number 5, right here, I would go reach outs. We want to facilitate a human relationship. This takes a little bit of work because you gotta disseminate customers between people, and if you don't have that, then you have to set up systems to automate some of those reach outs and here's the key. If they know it's automated, it will not work. It has to be systematized, not automated. If it's automated, like how many times do you respond to the green text that's like obviously automated? Never. You don't care because it shows that they don't care. And so the best way, and this is a Layla-ism, the best way to get people to think that you care about them, this is a really key trick, is to actually care about them. That's it. So reach outs. And then I would say these 2 I would implement together. So we'll go 6 and 7 because they're just such a perfect little marriage of doing the events and the invitations via handwritten cards. This is something that's just like fun. It's value add. The key is the open loop between the events, and you get the referrals you get from the handwritten cards. So that's the order that I would do these in. And I've got something else for you, something extra sexy because you know I love you. Little Easter egg for everybody else. Right now we've got the school games running, and if you don't know what that is, I'll tell you the outcome of it, which is that right now, 30.44% of people who start the games and finish their first month, all right? First month, just finish their first month, make their first $1 online, which I cannot explain to you. Like going from here, wherever you're at now, if you don't have a business, to making your first $1 is the hardest bridge to get over. There's so many things that feel unknown, and so the fact that we're getting 30.44%, I could not be more excited about. And so if you're somebody who's trying to start a business, we help you facilitate a lot of this stuff in school automatically, and so automagically, if you will. And so you can give it a shot. I've got a course. We do a bunch of calls in there. I put articles inside of the group there that are specific related to that business model, and you can start absolutely free. So if you want, you can give it a shot. School.com/games. Everybody else, keep crushing. And if you have a business you want to sell, go to acquisition.com. See you later.